The day I found out our son wasn't mine started like any other Tuesday. Daycare drop-off, coffee that tasted like regret, a stack of emails I kept meaning to answer. By noon, I was at the children's hospital because my son had a fever that wasn't breaking. It was a routine blood draw until the nurse looked at me like I had missed a memo and asked for the biological father's blood type. I laughed, said I was the dad. She said it had to be the biological dad listed in their chart. My laugh stuck in my throat when the chart said a different name, not spelled like a nickname. A real name I had only ever heard once, a name my wife had used in the past when she complained about someone from college. I went home and found her sitting on the couch with our son asleep on her chest. The house smelled like the cinnamon rolls she made for the weekend. She looked up at me like I should be reassured by that. She told me to sit down and that she needed to talk. I understood then that this was not about the sickness, it was about the chart, the name, the way the nurse had looked at me. She admitted calmly and quietly that she had been in contact with him that year. She said it started as a one-night mistake. Then he offered to help when she couldn't stop. She said she had been terrified of losing everything if I found out. Then she said the part that felt like a truck hitting me. She wanted me to stay. She said our son deserved stability, that I was a better father than anyone else, and that it would ruin him to be torn between two men. She said she loved me in a way that sounded rehearsed, and that staying was the brave thing to do. That was the first crack. It split everything. Because on one side of it was what I felt every time I watched my son sleep, a fierce, stupid love. On the other side was the shape of my life built on a lie. I kept thinking about the little hands that grabbed my shirt, the way he learned to ride a bike on my elbow, the way he called me dad in the thick of the night. I couldn't imagine walking away and calling it brave. So I did what any idiot in love would do. I swallowed. I agreed to stay. I told myself the truth of our family life mattered more than the biology on a chart. For a few weeks, I lived in a numb agreement. We made dinner, we did baths, we read the same stupid dinosaur book every night. She thanked me every evening like I had done her a favor by forgiving. I told myself I wasn't forgiving. I was protecting a child. I told myself the lie didn't change the kid who called me dad, but the lie will always ask for rent. Around week 6, I found a small cardboard box in the back of the closet that didn't belong to the Christmas decorations. Inside were emails printed from a clinic, appointment confirmations, a receipt for a frozen sperm deposit, her handwriting across one note, a date from the same month our son was conceived. I sat on the floor and the apartment swam. I confronted her with the box on the coffee table. She said she had planned to tell me when it felt safe, that she had been trying to figure out how. She said she had made the deposit with his consent because he wasn't ready for a family, but wanted the option later. She said it wasn't an affair, that I was imagining things, that I was making it bigger than it was. My heart started doing this thing where I couldn't catch up with my breath. I felt like I had been living someone else's life. I felt like the kid I put to bed every night was a lie I had been acting out for years. That night, I bought a paternity test. I didn't tell her. I told my best friend that I was going to do it, and he didn't try to stop me. He told me I should get a lawyer. He told me I should keep everything. I listened to him less than I listened to the hollow noise in my chest. The result came 1 week later, a tiny envelope I opened with fingers that trembled. Not mine, not by a long shot. My name and the word negative sat there like a verdict. I held it to the light as if there would be an opt-out. There was not. The holy shit moment was not the test itself. It was the way she reacted when I slid the paper across the table like a check on a failed bet. She looked at it, then at me, then at our son in his high chair, smearing yogurt everywhere. She went from calm to furious in 5 seconds. She accused me of breaking her, of tearing apart the family we had made, of wanting to hurt the boy. She said if I left, she would make sure I never saw him again. She said I had a choice. Be his father in every meaningful way, or walk away and be a stranger. Everything moved faster after that. She deleted messages from her phone. She stopped answering her mother's calls. She started telling our friends that I knew and had chosen to stay, painting me as the saint who put the child first. Her mother told mine that I was the hero of a story I hadn't agreed to. My sister, who had always liked my wife more than she liked me, suddenly had questions but no answers. People began to look at me sideways like I had agreed to a crime. My best friend started avoiding our house because he said he didn't want to be in the middle. Not now that the stakes were real. For a little while, I believed her version. I wanted to. I wanted the community, the school permission slips, the soccer practices to feel like a normal marriage. We went to a picnic together and smiled for pictures. I signed forms at school as legal father and felt the guilt as a heavy thing around my ribs every time I did. Then everything tightened. A week after the picnic, our son got sick at school, and my wife called me and said she would pick him up. I waited by the phone. She didn't call back for hours. When she finally answered, she was crying, saying the ex had shown up at the school claiming rights. He said he had a right to see his child, A rumor started on the parents' group chat that the boy's real father had come back to claim him. People started whispering about what I had known and how I had handled it. The ex started showing up at events. Not violent, not aggressive, just there, smiling at our son, posting pictures where the resemblance was obvious enough that strangers commented. He told a mutual friend that he wanted to be part of his son's life. My phone filled up with messages from people asking what the truth was. My wife called me hysterical and told me I had to do something or he would gain traction. I tried to be reasonable. I went to a lawyer. I explained that I was not the biological father, but that I had been the one who had been present for every scraped knee, every 2 a.m. fever, every ridiculous school play. The lawyer said biological ties mattered, but so did de facto parenting. The ex had money and charm and a clean record. He could argue he was returning to claim his child by right of blood. The lawyer said my best weapon was proof of who had been the boy's father in action. It was the lowest point when the school principal called and said that because the name on the hospital chart had been different, and because there were new legal filings, they needed to verify guardianship before releasing the child. I had to sit in the car in the drop-off lane while my son screamed and cried in the building because I couldn't go in without paperwork I had always assumed I would never need. I felt my identity, Dad, evaporate with every howl. I stopped sleeping. I started recording voice memos to keep track of who said what. I bought a cheap recorder and taped conversations with my wife where she admitted to lies and then, in the same breath, begged me to stay for the child. I bought receipts, screenshots, emails. I showed up to every school event with documentation that I had been the one making decisions. I paid for therapy for my son that I said was for his anxiety. I sat in the waiting room and cried into my hands while a woman with kind eyes told me to focus on what I could control. There was a turning point the day I walked into the courthouse for a temporary hearing, and for the first time I had said the words I had been avoiding. I want to be honest with my son. I want him to know who he is. I want to protect him from lies, not perpetuate them. I asked the judge for the right to continue as a parent, not by a fake name, but as the man who had raised him. I said I would accept the truth about biology, but I would refuse to be used. My wife screamed at me in the hallway afterward that I had betrayed her, that the truth would destroy the boy. Her mother cried and told me we needed to keep this private. The ex looked at me and told me he was ready to fight. I felt surrounded, but something about speaking my truth made me solid. I stopped pretending that staying without honesty was noble. I chose a new strategy. I would be a father on terms of truth. I would not lie to him. I would not let him be a pawn in someone's guilt. I would fight for the boy I loved, but not for the lie my marriage had become. The climax was messy and ugly. The ex filed for visitation rights. My wife accused me of trying to erase her. Friends chose sides. A cousin said I was making a mess of the family. A teacher asked me not to do anything that would destabilize the child. I sat in the courtroom and listed receipts, emails, the paternity test, the clinic records. I said out loud that I loved my son and that he deserved to know who he was. I asked for a custody arrangement that respected the child's needs, not my wife's panic. In the end, the judge granted a shared arrangement that surprised both of us. The legal blood father had the right to visitation, but the court recognized the years I had been the parent. They set up counseling for the child and a schedule that prioritized stability. The judge told us that children belonged to more than biology. It was a small mercy and a huge wreck. After court, I told my son the truth the way an adult should. We sat at the kitchen table, and I said that there were things he needed to know when he was older, that sometimes adults made hard choices, and sometimes those choices were wrong. I told him that I loved him then and that I would keep loving him now. He hugged my waist like he always had and whispered, "I love you, Dad." It felt like both a knife and a salve. My wife moved out a month later. She took the photos on the mantle and the pillows she had embroidered. She said she needed to find herself. She told our son she still loved him, and she cried at drop-offs. The ex showed up to some visits and to others he didn't. Our son was confused sometimes. He asked questions that I answered as honestly as I could without breaking him into pieces. Now the apartment is quieter. There's a schedule on the fridge. There's therapy on Tuesdays. My sister calls more now than she used to. My friend came back because he said he had been an idiot and he was sorry. I am building a life that isn't built on a secret. I still put the kid to bed. I still read the Dino book in a voice that makes him giggle. I still sign forms at school with my name and the title Dad. The difference is the boundaries. I will no longer be asked to be the lie that keeps other people comfortable. I am the man who stands up and says, this is how we will love him. Honestly, fiercely, and with rules. The opposite of that Tuesday is calm in a different way. Not naive, not untouched. The house feels steadier because the foundation isn't pretending anymore. I kept my promise to be a father, but I rebuilt what being a father meant. I stayed because I chose to stay, not because someone demanded it, not because I was afraid of what they'd say, but because I could look at him and know that truth was the only home that would actually protect him.